Welcome, listeners, to our second podcast today. And we have a great guest that that Jen's going to introduce to us today.
Yes. Hi, everybody. And thanks for coming back to check out what we have going on this week. So it's my distinct pleasure to introduce you to Ryan Percival, who is an investor from the Durham region down south in Ontario. That actually, him and I have a pretty interesting backstory of how we came to meet and work together. So Ryan came to me as a client about a year ago, actually just about a year ago, through another agent in my office. So Ryan and I connected on a phone call, and we kind of figured out that we were on the same page with a lot of things right off the hop. And we've had a really fun year together connecting and talking real estate and different strategies and different ways to do things and what some goals are and some planning and some emotions of getting his portfolio started and growing. So we want to keep this as real as possible. Ryan has this fantastic story about where he's at, how he got there, and where he wants to go. So we think it's a fantastic idea that he's here to share, and we're thankful that he agreed to do this, even though we're still kind of growing and learning and figuring it out. So thanks, Ryan, for being here. We couldn't be happier to chat.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Right on. Okay, so why don't we talk a little bit to kind of where were you a year ago when we first met and connected, and you were looking for a realtor and you were interested in investing in the Sudbury area. So where did it go from there?
Okay, yeah. About a year ago, well, I had always listened to a bunch of real estate stuff, and I kind of always had a bit of an idea of an itch that maybe I was going to want to invest in real estate. I just didn't really know what I was going to do, how I was going to do it and whatnot. But I think I ended up reaching out to you eventually in Sudbury because people were talking about Sudbury, saying it's a hotter market. So I was just started poking my head around. And then we had a great conversation there right off the hop. We started shopping around a little bit. Nothing really clicked. We had some stuff going on, but nothing really clicked. And then we ended up getting into that vacant lot there, which was kind of a surprise as well. But we figured we'd look into it, buy some land, and just see what happens. And then over the next year or so, it was pretty exciting. We got that lot, and then I knew I still wanted to grow the portfolio because I had a property in Kingston, which I kind of tripped into, and we can talk about it as well. But then I had that property, but I was hearing everyone on podcasts and talking to you guys about all your units, and I'm just thinking, how is everyone doing this? I have no idea how people are doing this, but talked to everyone, read some books and everything, and then I ended up refinancing my Kingston property to get the ball rolling. And that's when obviously I first met Mike and Leanne here, and they helped me out a lot with that. And then I just started growing. Like I said, I didn't really know how to do it or how people were doing it, but I just knew that some way someone was doing it, and I wanted to figure out how, and luckily connected with you guys, and you guys were able to get me on my way a little bit.
Good. So we know your Kingston property, but that's not the only one. So what property was first, and how did that all come about?
So actually Kingston was my first property. So I was working out there at the time. I was on a job there at a power plant, making good money. Everything was going well. And then everyone kind of said like, oh, buy a house, it's good, blah, blah, blah. And to be honest, I just kind of did it because it was the thing to do. And I had the money and just said I'd figure it out one way or another. And then I was there living at that house for about a year or so. And then suddenly some things had changed with the job. And next thing you know, they're like, oh, well, you got to be back in Toronto next week. And I was like, oh man, like, all right, then let me figure this out. So then luckily found a property manager out there. We got the place tenanted pretty quickly. And then I was like, well, I talked to the family. I was like, well, I'll just keep the place. I'll rent it for a little bit, and then I'll just sell it because I'm not living there. So I'm not going to keep it because what's that all about? And then over the next few months after that, I was at home. And then it all kind of started clicking because I was like, well, the tenants are paying everything down. Tenants are happy. We're happy. Everything's happy. And then at the same time, the value of the property is going up. And then that's when I started thinking that maybe I could do something with that. But then, so then after that, I refinanced the Kingston property for the first time. And I bought my primary residence in Bowmanville. And then that's when it really started clicking. Like, I was like, wow, like this, I only had to put money down the first time to buy the Kingston property. But now because of that, I was able to buy 2 properties. I'm like, wow, this could work. This could be something here. So then I started diving into all the podcasts, the books, and networking and talking. And then one thing led to the next, and we've grown a little bit here now. So I refinanced again through you guys, which was awesome on the Kingston property. And now there's a couple accepted offers on some New Brunswick properties. So that one little investment at the start when I didn't really know what I was doing. And here we are with, I guess 4 properties later, a few rental doors, and hopefully keep on growing.
Isn't that so funny? And I know we've had the conversation so many times. Most of us, when we started, had no idea what we were doing, right? And we just kind of had some lofty goals, and we figured that this would work if we did it right. And you know what? We kind of did the best we could and figured it out. So I
think a lot about it. A lot of it is about mitigating your risks and taking calculated risks. Like buying your property in Kingston, that was good. It was a good fit at the time because you were working there, and holding the property once you left, you decided and you were able to realize that the tenants were paying for the mortgage and paying everything off. So you were able to hold on to the property.
Oh yeah, that was probably the best decision I've ever made from an investing standpoint, for sure. And like
for sure, and in a really hot market too, right?
Absolutely.
So your value growth is going to be kind of hard and fast in a market like that, for sure.
It's grown like crazy. I got that when this was a brand new unit, semi-detached. I bought it for $375, and now we just recently reappraised it at $610. So over the last couple of years, it's gone up an extreme amount. But I'm so fortunate, and like I said, best decision I ever made, because that's what got the ball rolling, and I didn't even know it was going to at the time, but it just, I guess things happen for a reason, and one thing leads to the next, and then you're rolling, and it just seems a little bit easier every time too. Because at this start, I remember I was so nervous and like, well, things better work out, blah blah blah. I have this big mortgage, and what am I gonna do? And this that, I'm not even living here. And then I bought the second place, like my Bowmanville house, and then I was like, oh my god, I have 2 mortgages now. This is getting crazy. But just from talking with everyone, I was able to calm myself down and realize that this actually is a good strategy, and a lot of people are doing it. And like Steff says, as long as you understand some of the risk, and it's all calculated risks, and you go about it, and you just figure it out, and you figure it out as it comes, and all the problems and all the successes, and it just happens.
Well, and that's really important too, because we like to we've had talks repeatedly about biggest challenges, biggest successes. So you're at that growth part, right, where you're just kind of you're poised, and it's all happening quickly, and it's all kind of clicking together. But to get here so far, what do you find has been your biggest struggle? And I know that we've had conversations over the last year many times over what's not right, or what's, you know what I mean, what's problematic, or what's kind of tying you up a little bit, and how did you kind of get through that part of it?
Yeah, it wasn't straightforward as it sounds, for sure. There was a lot of setbacks here and there. For example, let's say, so everything was kind of smooth at the start. I bought the property, everything went well there in Kingston. I bought my primary residence, but then after that, I remember my mortgage agent was like, okay, well, you're done now. Like, take it easy for a while. You have your rental property, you have your primary residence. And then she actually said she wasn't going to do another mortgage for me for a while. So I was like, well, I guess I'm capped out, and at least I have one property. I'm doing okay. And then that was kind of that stuck with me for a while, because I have someone who's very good at her job, and she's a professional and everything is good, but she's telling me that I'm done. I'm like, well, okay. But then, like I said, I started listening and talking to people. I'm like, well, how is it that I'm done after 2 properties? I know I have a good job and everything's going well, and how come I'm done, but everybody else has multiples and multiples? So then that's when I started searching around a little bit, and I found another mortgage agent as well with the same bank there. And then we kind of went through the process, and unfortunately, once again, it just didn't work out. And then I was told again, no, like, you're done. You're gonna have to wait a while. And then I kind of got demotivated a little bit. I'm like, well, I keep trying, and then everyone's telling me no, so there must be a reason for it. And I guess I'm done for now. But then the main thing too is to there's always a way. There's always a way you can do it. There's people to talk to, and there's people who have different strategies and everything. And then luckily I stumbled across Mike and Leanne, and then they were able to point me in another direction and restructure the finances here and get things rolling. So I'm glad I didn't give up after the first few no's and just kept going, because I wouldn't have these properties that just acquired over the last few weeks without it. So I guess just keep on pushing, because there's always a way. And
Mike can attest, that was exactly our problem when we entered into the real estate world, was exactly what you went through, that the banker said no.
Yeah. And we thought it was a fantastic mortgage agent, and he worked some magic for us. And then it was like, no, you guys are done. Right. And we kind of sat down and thought, okay, I guess we're done. Same thing. You hear. We started digging around and getting hold of a few people. And then somebody else was like, oh no, we can get you a couple more. Right. So it's really key getting hold of the right people and having those proper plans. So
and then we went into the business.
yeah. And that was kind of a driving factor for us, just so that we could help people through those processes, and have them look at files differently, and have them understand what is possible. So
absolutely.
I wanted to ask you, it sounds like you're a busy guy. Obviously, you're very successful at your job. And how do you manage your time? I know you have a very demanding schedule. You work a lot of overtime. You travel a lot for work. How do you stay organized, and how do you, work through all of this?
Yeah, it's overloading a lot at times. Like I said, there's a lot of hours, there's a lot of overtime, and it's easy. Like I said, it's easy to get demotivated, especially when you work in these long hours and all you want to do is come back and sleep. But I guess what keeps me, it's just motivation, and it keeps me motivated knowing that there's no one else that's going to do this for me. The only way that I'm going to be successful or going to be where I want to be is to put in the hours and to put in the work. So a lot of the time you get home from work and you're exhausted, but I'm like, let me just at least do something. Let me just roam MLS for a while, or maybe I'll have a little conversation with Jen, or she'll remotivate me, and just keep pushing, because it does get tough, and you have to stay organized for sure. But I think motivation is the main driving factor, because at the end of the day, like I said, nobody else is going to do it for you. It's all on you. And if you don't do it, then that's the life that you're paving for yourself. So I just try to stay motivated, and it helps a lot having a team in place too, because you guys are awesome. You have a property manager, they handle a lot of everything. So when you have your team in place, it makes it a lot easier to get things done, because we can't all do it by ourselves, that's for sure. But motivation is probably the main thing.
And it's tough, right? It's tough to stay motivated all the time, because you run into stumbling blocks, and you get into ruts, and you get busy, and life gets in the way, and you have all this other stuff that you're kind of taking care of, that real estate will sometimes kind of take a back seat. And it's easy to just say, oh, I'll get to that like next week, or I'll just, I don't have time this week. I'll get to that later. And then all of a sudden later turns into a weekend, a week, a month, a season, and all of a sudden you kind of look and go, oh my gosh, like I've lost so much time because I haven't stayed motivated. So I know for Steff and I, linking in with Mike and Leanne has been a great motivating force for us, because the conversation is always really geared towards mindset and goals and where we're going, and how those little steps are kind of what's working hard to get us there. Not those great big steps that don't happen often. It's the cumulative little steps that all of a sudden you kind of look back and go, oh my gosh, look at how far we've come. And I know too, in the year that we've been connected with Ryan, you've been a fantastic cheerleader for us. And on the days where, I get down and I get lost in the details of, property managers and lawyers and tenant issues and all that kind of stuff. And you'll look at us and go, oh my God, but look at how far you've come and what you've got. And it's like, oh my God, you're right. Like I need to kind of be able to refocus and look at that part of it, and look at how far we've come in a year.
I think that's important too. I think I think it's important to stay detailed and look at all the details as you're going every day. But I think it's also important to once in a while just look back and see where you started and where you came from, because it's very easy to have a few days. Okay, things are not going well with the property. We got renovations and nothing's going well and this and that, or maybe a tenant's giving us troubles or we've left. But at the end of the day, it's easy to quickly get caught up in that circle. But then if you can just take a step back, I think, and look at where you've really come, you'd be pretty proud of yourself. And I think that's also very important too at the end of the day.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It helps you keep things in perspective. And ultimately, when you look back, like you say, Ryan, you can count on one hand how many bad days you have as opposed to how many good days. But it's always the bad days that you, for some reason or other, you want to dwell on.
Yeah.
But looking back and taking stock of what you have really keeps things in perspective, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree
No,
more.
it's fantastic. So just looking back at your last year, Ryan, can you think of any, or can you pinpoint any decision that you made that you wish you could have made differently? Like, is there anything, if you could go back and change it, what would you change?
That's a good question. Let's see.
Like, I know we had the adventures with the lots and a couple of choices with those, and that kind of switched up as we went. Now you've got you went through a really big refinance. You've got New Brunswick kind of on your horizons now. Is there anything that you would have done differently if you could go back, or do you think
I'm not sure if I would have done anything too differently, to be honest with you. I feel like maybe there was better decisions that could have been made, but I think at the end of the day, we are where we are and we're supposed to be here. Like maybe, I don't know, well, first off, I wish I would have connected with Mike and Leanne a year ago as well. And we could have got the ball rolling and got things restructured with my personal mortgage that I had and get things done right. That would have been a big help. But at the same time, like I said, like, you kind of need to go through what you go through to grow at the end of the day. So I don't know if I would have done anything differently per se. Maybe explored other markets, because I think I was very caught up in, first of all, having a place near me or having a place in Ontario for one. And I wasn't even really thinking about other provinces because, oh my God, I'm not going to drive to New Brunswick and all that kind of stuff. But maybe explore other opportunities and just keep an open mind. But like I said, that's all part of growing, and you learn that as you go, and it forms you to who you are as an investor at the same time. So,
100%.
Maybe you could have done I could have maybe made some better choices, but at the end of the day, it's all working out, and you just got to keep your foot on the pedal and keep on going.
Yeah,
I think, and it makes you stronger, right? Learning all the mistakes, and it makes you stronger, and it forces you to get out of your comfort zone and learn and move and grow.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
at least you're doing something, right?
You're taking action.
You're taking action, right? That's so
yeah,
important.
no, and that's where the change. That's where it starts, right? And it might not look like you think it's supposed to look, or it might not feel like you think it's supposed to feel, but ultimately, it's what drives you to. It's different, right? And that's what grows you.
A big one too, actually, which sticks with me now, is the conversation we actually had just a few weeks ago there. Where you kind of pulled me out of the rut. You're like, okay, come on, man, let's do something. Because I remember, I don't know, we completed the refinance a few months ago, and then I just got into this web. I was just searching MLS, and I was just drowning in MLS and evaluating every single deal, which is great. Which is great experience. You have to do that. I think you have to go through that to understand your numbers and to understand your markets and evaluate everything. But I was just going in circles, and it was one property after the next, and then I'd see a property and like, oh, that's okay. But then I had this idea, oh, I could do better. I could find something better. I can find something better. And you just start spinning, and you go through all these motions. And I was talking with Jen, and we just started talking. I was like, well, I've been looking at properties for months, and I've still landed on nothing. And Jen's just basically told me to pull the trigger, and she pulled me right out. It's like, you could do this forever and get caught up in the MLS and off-market deals and evaluating everything, and then still have nothing. So I think it can be a nerve-wracking thing to pull the trigger, but at the end of the day, it could be one of the best decisions you've made. And then ever since I first pulled that trigger, now we have another property coming as well, and we're just growing. So thankfully you pulled me out of that little rut there. But I think that's good for people to understand that it's good to evaluate. It's good to go through those motions, but at some point in time, you're going to have to pull the trigger and you're just going to have to take the lead. And at the end of the day, just figure it out. Even if it doesn't work and you pull the trigger and you buy a property and it just goes south, it just tanks. But there's no other way to learn. So at the end of the day, you just got to go for it and just figure it out. Talk to people, network, and just find a way to get it done at the end of the day.
I love it.
You were talking about analyzing properties, and I tell you, if we bought every property that we analyzed, I think we'd have 6,000 buildings. Like it can get discouraging, right? You're looking at
absolutely. Absolutely.
And I tell Mike that all the time too. Like, quit analyzing. Just holy man, we gotta go.
Just pick one. Pick one.
Let's go.
Absolutely. And I have a couple buddies that I talk to as well. And they're kind of in the same boat, but you go through all the processes like everyone else. You read the books, you read the podcasts, like you have an understanding, you have your network, you have your team. Just do it. Like, what are you waiting for? Everyone's waiting for the market crash and this and that, which could be valid here and there. But at the same time, there has to come a time when you just go for it, because you're going to have all this equity or you're going to have all this money sitting aside waiting for the perfect deal. But in that whole time frame, you've just passed up on 3 or 4 that would have been great for you. And then 6 months later, a year later, you're still searching. And that deal that was just okay before could now be worth so much more. And then you can keep growing your whole portfolio. So it might have just seemed okay at the time. Maybe it wasn't a home run, but then that turned into a home run later on without even knowing it. So
that's right. And I mean, in that time frame, that time frame, like if you waited 6 months or a year, now you look back and you've missed out on that 6 months or a year of cash flow, whether it was great or maybe not great, it was still cash flow. That equity build, you're paying down your mortgage. You know, you're like a year is a long time, especially in a market like what today's market is like. But take the hot market aside, and even 5 years ago, when the market wasn't as crazy as it is now, you still would have had cash flow every month. You still would have had that equity build. You still would have had that mortgage pay down, and you're that much further ahead than you would have been doing nothing. Absolutely. Right. And those are conversations I have with buyers all the time that are really hesitant. And it's like, and you know what, they're hesitant for lots of different reasons. Right. But a lot of it is kind of that analysis paralysis, is they get into that and they can't choose because they're looking at the same thing every day. And like you, they get caught up in that, I can do better. I can do better. I can do better. And then all of a sudden you realize 6 months or a year has gone by and you're no further ahead than you were. Whereas if you would have taken the deal that wasn't amazing, you would at least be that much further ahead.
Absolutely. And then also too, I think it's important to study everything and know your numbers, but you also need to be a little creative, because I think there's a lot of young guys like myself too, who are trying to buy their first house and they're saying, well, I'll just wait, or I'll wait a year and I'm going to save up some more money, or wait 2 years and then I'll move out. But a friend of mine, actually, we were having this conversation and he's like, yeah, I'm going to buy a house in a couple of years. Like, I can afford something, but I don't have enough to buy like where I want. But then that's when we got in the conversation. Like, if you can afford something now, it doesn't need to be any sort of forever home or anything like that. Like, look at other markets. Look at the Sarnias and the Sudburys and they're out east and stuff like that. Look at those markets. And if you're going to stay at home for 2 years anyways, maybe you buy a place, rent that out for a couple of years, gain the equity, because it's tough for us these days. Like, our wages are not going to keep up with inflation, and the market increases. So buy something that possibly will, like a property that can keep up with the market and everything else going on. So buy a property, rent it for a while, and then pull that equity, and then go buy the place that you want to live in 2 years, if that was your plan anyways. So I think it's important to also be creative and to look ahead and understand where you want to go and how you can get there, because a lot of people are caught up in this straightforward line, but there's so many different ways to do it, and you could be more successful in the end as well.
I think it's honestly incredible. I mean, we were talking before, you're the age of 25. I mean, how many 25-year-olds have accomplished what you have accomplished? I mean, to me, that's incredible. And I hope our kids do that at the age of 25 too, and keep doing that. So kudos to you for powering through and having that vision to want more and to be successful. And like, you're going to do amazing things.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
I just, I can't even imagine once you're our age where you're going to be. You know what I mean? Like,
hopefully we're all on a beach somewhere,
We're
right?
only 30.
Yeah.
No,
So
like,
why don't I take us into the next little set there? We'll do some lightning questions for Ryan.
Okay.
We'll get him
let's go.
all pumped up. So what
Let's do
are
it.
just quick answers? What are 3 things you can't live without?
3 things I can't live without. Okay. I like my beer. I like my Coronas. I love pizza. I love pizza and family, friends. I think you need all those. I think you need all 3. And if you got all 3, you're happy. So family and friends, pizza and beer, and life is good.
No, and you're right
Okay.
with the support, right?
For sure.
I'll fire off with the next one. If you could go back in time, what would you change about your journey?
Oh, about the journey. From an investing standpoint, I think maybe just start earlier, start networking earlier, and build up that portfolio from the start. Like I said, I got lucky where I kind of just tripped into it, but maybe if I had started earlier, was thinking about it earlier, we could have done things differently and accelerated it. So maybe just if I was to do things differently, just start thinking about investing earlier on in college and those days, because nobody really talks about that stuff. But I think if you start earlier, then you're setting yourself up for success.
and that's so funny, says like a 25-year-old, right?
Yeah.
So like earlier is not a very big window for you.
Start earlier, like grade 12?
Yeah.
You know,
No,
in
and-
grade 8, they never talk about this stuff in grade 8.
Yeah. Financial literacy.
And you know what? We have that talk all the time, right? Just about financial literacy with our kids and investing and being creative about it and kind of learning how to do something like this to supplement what your job is. Because guess what? You might wake up one day and be 30 and hate your job and want to do something else.
Mhm.
And if you're locked into that make money, pay bills cycle, you know what I mean? You can't really get off of that wheel. But if you have a little bit of a portfolio, a little bit of that creative thinking, a little bit of that financial literacy support around you, then it becomes really simple to kind of create some options and opportunities if your situation or your mindset changes down your road.
The thing is too, no one ever really talks about it because everyone's going down the path and they go through schooling and you learn all your history and your geography, but no one ever talks about the financials and the investing. And then you kind of just have to figure it out on your own if you're lucky, or maybe you have a support group who's doing the same thing and you guys talk about it, but nobody really talks about it like throughout your high school years and college. But I think it's important. And then a big thing too is that everyone has this myth that the only way to invest in, let's say, real estate is to have $100,000 sitting in the bank. But that's not really the case. Like if you have $10,000, $15,000, well, maybe you link up with someone who's doing it and maybe they need some renovation money and you look at some sort of a lending structure. Like there's many ways to invest in real estate without needing the $100,000 that everyone thinks you need before you can do anything, or any sort of JV partnership, like a joint venture. So I think if people are learning and talking about this stuff early on in their high school years or college years, I had money in college that I just sat on and I blew it at the bars and everything else. But maybe if I was to go back, just think about it, because maybe that $10,000 I could have lent that to someone and turned it into $20,000 and got the ball rolling right off the hop. So maybe that's another thing I would have done back then.
Yeah.
All right. Next question.
That's great perspective too.
Okay. So what is the most important piece of information you can share to our listeners with respect to the real estate investing to help others?
To help others. Yeah. Let's see. There's so much to talk about.
Just a quick snippet, just something quick.
Yeah. I'd say, like I said, just do it. I don't know how else to say it. Like just start reading, start educating yourself, and just do it. Talk to people, because we could go on and on about all this different advice, but talk to people, build a network, get people that are going to keep you motivated and build your team, and then just start finding a way to do it. Really, that's my only really piece of advice. And maybe if someone had told me to do that a while ago, maybe it would have been accelerated, but I'm happy. But if I was to give any advice, just do it, educate yourself, and just go for it, really.
Awesome. Okay, so last little lightning round question. What markets do you see yourself looking at in 10 years? Or where do you think you'll see yourself in 10 years?
That's a good question, actually. I think you can make it work in almost any market, really. I'm going to continue to explore out east, the New Brunswick properties that we got, because I think there's a lot of potential out east, and it hasn't reached its peak yet. So I think it's a little bit tougher in some areas of Ontario, and that's not to demotivate anyone or say that it's not possible. I think it is still possible, but I think markets that have not yet peaked or reached their full potential, like the markets like out east, New Brunswick and the Nova Scotias, or maybe even out west in an Edmonton or Calgary area. I think there's a lot of potential in those markets for multi-units or even maybe future development, condo development, apartment buildings, and all things that. So I think I'll continue to explore those markets over the next few years. And then 10 years down the line, hopefully a portfolio which is paying for itself and sustaining itself, and we can all be sipping something on the beach somewhere one day and not worrying about the day-to-day so much.
So maybe not even working in 10 years from now is what you're saying.
That could be good. So keep trucking along, and we'll see what happens in 10 years. It's exciting to think about, but it's also important just to worry about the next day and what you got to do next. So that's where I'm at right now.
I think that's wonderful. And that actually reminds me, and it was something that Mike had said earlier. So Mike, I'm going to steal your thought a little bit, and I'm going to ask Ryan, because we do have a couple of minutes left. Like, you're 25 years old, Ryan, you have a good job, right? Like, you work crazy hours, you travel a fair bit, but you're making great money. You're doing something that you went to school for. What was going on that even made you look at investing as something to do? Like Leanne was saying earlier, like, there aren't a lot of guys your age that are as motivated and as forward thinking as you are with something like this. So, you know what I mean? You're young, you're fun, you're in your 20s, you're doing all the stuff that 20-year-olds are supposed to be doing. You got a great job, you're making good cash. Why invest? Like, what motivated you there? Where did that come from?
That's a good question too. To be honest, yes, a good job. Everything's paying well. It's easy to say, to be happy and content, and a lot of people are, and I don't blame them. Everything is going well. But I think what stuck with me was I realized that everything is good now. I'm making good money, but what's going to happen when I want to retire? First off, I don't want to be working late into my years, still working because I have to. So that was one driving factor. So what is it that I can do now that can set me free, at least for retirement, so that I can retire at a decent age, I can enjoy the rest of my life, and I'm not worrying about the day-to-day money and where's my next paycheck coming from, and worrying about a pension from a previous company or anything like that. I want it to be fully sustained on my own. And then I also realized too that I'm working a lot, I'm making good money, but at the same time, I don't know if I want to work a lot. I don't want to work these crazy hours for the rest of my life and then missing maybe future kids' hockey games, soccer games, and everything that comes with that. Like, you do everything you do so that you can enjoy your life and you can be happy, but you can't actually enjoy your life or spend the money if you're working all the time. So I think that was the biggest driving factor, was that I needed to find a way to create some sort of passive income that can allow me to live the life that I want to live in the near future, and especially way down the road when I'm looking at retiring and just relaxing. So I knew that I was good now and everything was going well now, but it wasn't going to set me up for what I really wanted here in the future. So I think that was the main driving factor.
Right. Trading time for money, right? There's only so much time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah. 100%. I think that's wonderful.
Awesome.
Anything else? You guys have anything else you want to ask Ryan, or that we think he should touch on that we haven't gotten already? I think that was fantastic.
I hope he the story inspires a lot of young people to just do it. And I mean, get out of your comfort zones and look to the future. And to me, that's incredible to hear you saying, like, I'm looking at retirement already at that age. And I mean, I remember me being that age and retirement seemed so far away and I really didn't care. So to have that mindset now is virtually, to me, it's just mind-blowing, incredible.
And to hear it too, when I hear
potential is crazy.
And when I hear hey, you went to school, you got a good education, now you got a good job, and you got a pension and you're making good money, and you think that's what everybody's striving for. But a little bit of, my story, like I had that, right? I had that fantastic job, and I went to a meeting, and then I didn't have that anymore. Right.
Wow.
So it's, you just never know where you're going to be. So I'm so glad to hear that you're, taking steps and setting yourself up.
Absolutely. And that's what everyone thinks too. Everyone thinks that they want to get their job, get out of college, get a great job, and everything is good. But then you start going through those motions and you're like, is this going to be it forever? Like, or is there something more for me? Like, is there something better for me? So I think that's the main thing. And like I said, if I was to say anything to anyone thinking about investing, or like young guys, girls, everything, thinking about investing, like, just start talking to people, like start networking, because then so many things are possible without even knowing it. So I think a lot of people, just from talking to friends and everyone, people my age and whatnot, everyone's kind of got some money. They're thinking, oh, maybe I'll invest in real estate, or maybe I'll do this and that. It doesn't have to be real estate. It could be any sort of stocks or the stock market, anything else that you want to invest in. But everyone's like, oh, I might do that. Yeah, later on, I'll get things sorted out for a while. But then a few years go by, you've missed so many opportunities, and you could have got in at certain times. So I think it's important to just start having the conversations, even if you only have a few bucks, 5,000, $100, whatever it is. Like, just start having those conversations, and the next thing you know, there's going to be a lot of possibilities that you weren't even aware of before. So that would be my one big takeaway and advice for people my age, is just start talking to people and start looking into it, because there's more out there than what you understand right now.
No, and I think that's going to be incredibly inspiring to a lot of people, young and older, that are going to listen and that are going to watch this, and that want to be part of this kind of investing life. And there's so much good information there, honestly. So
absolutely.
I think,
Well,
and I think that's,
I was just going to add too, and where can people find you, Ryan? Like your social media, what's the best way to say, if somebody was inspired and want to get a hold of you, what's the best way? Or
best way is probably Instagram right now. Instagram for sure. I don't even know what my Instagram is here. Maybe we can put it in the comments here or something, or I'll tell you. Ryan _Percival. So RYAN_Percival, PERCIVAL. So if anyone wants to talk, young investors, anyone wants to talk or chat, or just maybe they're thinking about it, they don't know how, or if it's possible, or if they should wait. And I'm always open to have the conversation and share some experiences. And I'm still learning. I'm still at the very beginning stages, but I've gotten the ball rolling, and I've done a lot of talking over the last couple of years here. And if anyone wants to talk, and I'm happy to share anything.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I think you're at such a great part in your story. You're going to make for a great return visit. Give it a month, give it 2 months, maybe give it 3 months, and we'll have you back and have a conversation again to see what's happened and kind of where you're headed, because I think that there's lots of really wonderful things coming for you. Like, how can there not be? You're 25 and you're so driven.
I'm super excited.
We're super excited to see it happen. Right.
Awesome.
So we can't wait. So on that note, if we're done and we're ready to wrap it up, again, Ryan, thank you so much for joining us tonight and being willing to share your story. I think it was wonderful to hear all of your examples and all of your roadblocks and your stumbles and your successes and the direction that you're heading. We can't wait to see where you go and just listen to more of where you're at. And on that note, I guess we're done, and we look forward to coming back again next time with another awesome guest to share their story and bring perspective to what this investing journey is all about.
Yeah. So thanks for keeping it real.
Yeah. Right on. That's what we do here. Okay, right on, guys. We'll talk to you next time.
Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.